Good evening, everyone. Please bear with the frog in my throat this evening. I'll do my best. And welcome to the October meeting of the Trumbull Town Council. We're going to rise now for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. During the moment of silence, if everybody would please recall the memory of Margaret Gillard, who's the mother of former Town Councilwoman Kathy Bobona. We also have, most of you know my dad passed last week, and I appreciate all the condolences and the outreach. And also today is the one-year anniversary of the Israeli war that's ongoing. So let's have a moment of silence for some peace in that region.
The United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mike Buswell.
Here.
Mary Isaac.
Here.
Michael Colahan.
Here.
Bill Mecca.
Here.
Ann Sather.
Here.
Jennifer Winchell.
Here.
Veronica Lenzen.
Here.
Richard Wolf.
Here.
Jason Marsh.
Here.
Anthony Dorsey.
Here.
Ashley Gaudiano.
Here.
Carl Massaro.
Here.
John Foreman. Joe Pifko.
Here.
Scott Wick.
Here.
Joy Cologne.
Here.
Steve Lemoyne.
Here.
Kelly Malazzi.
Here.
Tony Cinto. Kevin Shively.
Here.
Nicole Satin. She's on the phone.
Thank you, Nicole. I think we've done this before. And that's quite all right. It's quite all right. All right. So on our agenda, next comes public comment. Not to confuse anybody this evening, but we have two forms of input from the public tonight. Public comment is the portion where anybody who would like to speak to any item on our agenda can speak at this time. I will be calling a separate public hearing for the proposed sale of the property on Main Street. We'll try to do that in fairly short order. If you want to speak about that particular item, I'd ask that you wait till I call the public hearing and speak then. If you don't think you'll make it that long, you're welcome to speak now at public comment. So I have no sign-ups for anybody for public comment this part of the agenda. Okay, anybody want to speak to any item on the agenda? You can do that now. If not, in a few minutes, we'll have the public hearing on the land sale. Okay, all right, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of our minutes from September. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Make the motion.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. Can we adopt them by unanimous consent? Ms. Satin?
Yep.
Thank you. They are adopted. Before we start our business with resolutions, we have a recognition tonight. We should all take great pride in our community when we have folks who come to the aid of fellow citizens. So I'd like to read a Trumbull Police Department press release from August 19th of this year. And it's entitled, Trumbull Emergency Personnel Rescue Woman and Dog from River. On Monday, August 19th, 2024, at approximately 10:15 a.m., the Trumbull Police Department received a 911 call that a woman and her dog were swept away in the Paquonic River. Trumbull police were advised that the woman was on the phone with her friend when her dog went into the river and got swept away. She then went into the river attempting to rescue her dog. Numerous police officers, Trumbull Center Fire Department, and Trumbull EMS personnel all responded to assist with the rescue. Arriving officers heard the woman screaming for help and quickly located her in the river near Twin Brooks Park. The river was high and fast-moving due to the recent flooding conditions, but she was able to keep her head just above water as she was holding on to the vegetation. A Trumbull police officer, Timothy McEnany, was assisted by an off-duty firefighter, Sean Bogan. and they pulled the woman to safety. The woman was then evaluated by EMS, but declined further treatment. The dog was found safe downstream around Lindbergh Drive as it was heard barking in that area and was safely reunited with her owner. There was a post on Facebook by Lindsay Chochi, who's here this evening. And as she described it, the off-duty firefighter reached his arm down and pulled the woman out of the river. She said she was incredibly brave and never gave up, as it took a couple of tries to pull her from the water. So, Lindsay, thank you for that acknowledgement. And I'm going to call on First Selectwoman Vicky Tesoro. We're going to recognize Officer McEnany and Mr. Sean Bogan. So I understand Officer McEnany is unable to be here tonight, but we have Mr. Sean Bogan, and we will now deliver these citations.
Sean, yes, this is a repeat performance, because you all may remember that not too long ago, we honored Sean before in a fire where he also saved some of our residents. Not that long ago. When was that?
February.
February.
January.
So in recognition of your heroic actions on August 19th, 2024, which saved a woman who had fallen into the Ponic River while trying to rescue her dog. The dog's name is?
River.
River.
I thought you were wrong.
Your quick action saved the woman from being swept away in the fast-moving water. And I say thank you very much on behalf of the entire community for saving her life.
Can I say one thing? People like Sean don't come around very often. And he took me from a situation that was absolutely my stupidity. And I would do it again. And he never gave up on me as weak as I was. And he kept saying we were going to do this, and we were and they just worked, and they did their magic, and they got me out. I never realized how weak I was until I tried to reach for his arm and hold on, and I could not do that. I could not do that. And because of him, I'm able to be a mother, a friend, a teacher to 100 and something Bridgeport students, a daughter, and live life. But we're not doing it again anytime soon.
No, give it a year.
At least a year.
Yeah, give it a
At
year.
least a year. But I thank you from the bottom of my heart and from my families. Thank you.
I'm going to get you guys in the photo too. Thank you.
So we have the same certificate for Officer Timothy McEnany, and we will deliver this
And thank you.
as soon as possible. Let's go.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right. Doesn't seem to matter. I thought the dog's name was going to be Pequannock, but
That's promise you that that will be the next one.
The next one.
But I'm not jumping in the one.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll go to our usual business, our resolutions. I'm going to ask for a motion to bring item 10, resolution 30-94, to the front of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second,
Thank you.
Draculon.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Anyone opposed? You good with that, Ms. Satin?
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, Mr. Marsh, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-94, be it resolved that the sale of a portion of real property at 6175 Main Street is hereby approved, and that Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, is hereby authorized to execute all documents required to finalize the sale. Public hearing, Town Council, October 7th, 2024.
Thank you. Mr. Pifko, do you have a committee report for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. It was moved by Guadiano, seconded by Lemoyne, to enter executive session at 8:53 p.m. for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations. The motion carried unanimously.
Sounds like a short meeting, but it really wasn't when you include the executive session. Okay, so this resolution asks the council to consider selling a portion of the land that it owns just north of the Lake and Main gas station. So I'll ask Attorney Shopik to come up and give us an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For purposes of the public, there are some negotiating aspects that that have evolved as a result of the committee meeting last week that we need to go into executive session for. But I think for public consumption, for purposes, and let me say to the public that once this transaction takes place, the entire specifics become public. So there's a contract. There's been contract negotiations, but I can say in general terms that originally the idea was to sell that whole piece that the town owns. The town owns that piece of property next to the gas station, significant portion of wetlands there. And the first time we came in to speak with the committee, there was some reluctance, fear of what the purchaser might do with it subsequently. So we went back to them and have essentially agreed, and what we're asking the council to vote on tonight is to purchase a portion of that. It's 1/3 of an acre, all right? And somebody, I was asked, I've looked at the description and looked at the cutout of what the purchase is, and it's 91 feet on Main Street, and then it goes up from there. But the purchase price is $160,000 for that 1/3 of an acre, and we have part of the determination and his situation is that the portion they're buying from the town would be used for parking only, so that as I understand the plan that's going to be brought to the Planning and Zoning Commission subsequently by the owner of the property, that the gas station property, is that they intend to have a gas station. They also intend to have a convenience store there. So that's the basic plan. Without getting into as I said, there are some contractual issues that have been resolved over the last week. I did make them available to the chair. I did to Mr. Pifko, to Ms. Gordiano and Mr. Marsh for the two caucuses. But in terms of going into detail, I'd need to go into executive session. May want to have the public hearing first, but
Yes, I think that's what we'll do. So thank you for that update and general description of what the plan is there. I do have a sign-in sheet for a public hearing, so I think it's appropriate at this time that if you want to speak to this, I am opening the public hearing now at 7:54, and would ask when I call your name to come forward and say what you'd like to say about this proposal. So the first speaker is Mr. Paul Baris of 3 Turney Place.
Good evening. Live at 3 Turney Place. I am definitely within a stone's throw of Lake and Maine's service station. Used to know Pete and Steve that used to own it. I understand that we want to move forward here, keep business growing here in Trumbull. I do have a few requests. First off, Lake and Main and Turney Place intersection is a habitual traffic waiting for somebody to die over there. People don't stop for the red lights. I've made numerous complaints about it. That's one thing. The other thing that used to happen there is people at Main Street going towards Stop and Shop would cut through that parking lot to get to Lake Avenue. Happened all the time. People almost got hit. The other thing is this morning, the excavator started digging at 5:55 a.m. this morning. 4 dump trucks, beeping. Thank you. Made a quick phone call just to confirm that noise ordinance is 7 o'clock, which it is. So I don't mind that the guys want to work, do what they got to do, but if they're going to wind up working before the ordinance, I think that it would be just a nice courtesy to send out some sort of mailer to the residents that live on congruent to Main Street, so that we don't have to worry about being disturbed at 5:55 in the morning and getting ready for work. And also, the other last thing is, I hope that you're going to do some sort of traffic study, because depending upon what goes there, as everybody well knows, nobody likes going down Churchill towards Daniels Farm anymore because of the Starbucks and the CVS over there. And I work for the state of Connecticut Traffic Signals Division, and I constantly get phone calls about the traffic light because of the traffic, because the people can't come out of CVS. Which goes to show that a traffic study was not done there, because an old building with one realtor lawyer that used to be in the building, there was no traffic there. You put in CVS, you put in Starbucks, and now the traffic is out of control trying to come out of that place, and that's why everybody complains about that intersection. And we also had to tell Colleen from the police department that she needs to talk to the local transit authority so that they can proceed with the traffic engineer to make a change there. So I hope that you guys do a traffic survey, how this place is going to impact the intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paris. I do not have anybody else signed up. Doesn't mean you can't speak. If you wish to be heard on this, please come forward. Give us your name and address, please.
Sure. It's Jenny Damio, and I live on George Street, 12 George Street. So some neighbors here are concerned because we really don't know about the sale, and the property next to it borders the wetlands. So George Street's parallel, it runs behind it, and so we're just concerned that if, he's doing parking, that's fine, as long as trees aren't coming down. We don't know how much that's going into the wetlands.
Okay, did you have any other questions or concerns about that?
I think that's it, but that's our biggest concern, is we bought where we live because of the privacy there.
Mm-hmm. Can you spell your last name for us,
It's
please?
Damio.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Leah Pomanowski. I live at 16 George Street, next door to Ginny Damio. My concern is the same as Ginny, but also you're talking about parking. Does that mean it's going to be one-level parking? Is it going to be a building with 2 levels, 3 levels? What's going to happen over there as far as parking? Is it just going to be, that's what I want to know, because that does impact us on the other side. Also bought that house so that I had some privacy. That was the reasoning of it. And I don't want that to change how we feel over there, looking at like a high-rise building or something. I mean, that was the whole purpose of it. And we don't want to change anything in that area of the wetlands, trees, what have you. And I'm also concerned with the traffic too, like the gentleman said earlier. There's a lot of traffic right there on that corner.
Okay.
Thank
we
you.
will take that under consideration. Thank you. Ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Carol Banner. I live at 2 Home Street, which George Street runs into. I've lived there for 50 years. I don't know how many of you have lived there that long, but it used to be that from George Street up to Main Street, it was nothing but cow country. There was nothing, and the firemen used to hold their carnival on the empty lot right next to my house before I bought it. I live in the old Griffin property. He owned that land. And if you know anything about the area, you have Lake Avenue, and then you have George Street running off Lake Avenue parallel to Main. It's George Street because that was George Griffin's property. It runs into Home Street where he built his home, and that is the home that I live in. So there's a lot of history in the neighborhood. What you may not know if you're just running up and down Main Street is that behind where the gas station used to be, it's corridor country. You have wild animals coming all the way up from Bridgeport behind the Lutheran Church, going north on an annual visit, and you have snapping turtles bigger than tires coming down to lay their eggs in that little green belt. I've had 2 fawns born on my property, so young that the mother was still licking them. They stayed with me 3 days. I have tried to keep a small habitat there to protect those animals. We don't need another gas station. I was so happy that it got dug up. We are giving away our land, things that we cherish and hold dear and make us unique. We can't let the urban look, the urban way of living come to our town. We need to preserve it. That would be a wonderful, that strip of land would be a wonderful place to turn it into a classroom, an outdoor classroom to teach kids what wildlife is really about and what the old days were really about. I don't know I don't know the owners who bought this, who want to make another gas station. We have a gas station by the supermarket. We have a gas station 2 blocks up. And we have to preserve the wetlands. I'm hoping that the town didn't sell wetlands to be dug up, because I don't think that's very legal. It certainly isn't very ethical. I'm hoping that you will preserve it. If something goes in there, make sure you know what's going in there and the repercussions. When I bought my property, I have 2 lots. My house is on the corner of Home and Ridgeview. Then you have an empty lot, which I own, and then from there's another lot to Main Street. Over the years, the town allowed houses to be built on Main Street between Lake Avenue and Ridgeview Avenue. They filled most of that land so that now I'm at the bottom of the bowl. God forbid we have a hurricane up here, I'm going to be 30 feet underwater. But everything has been built. Those people on Main Street, they can't use their front doors. They can't get their mail. The mailman drops their mail on Ridgeview Avenue and they walk a block down Home Street to get their mail. There's a common driveway for 2 houses that runs behind my property. And what is it, the Amazon Prime, whatever, has so many trucks going in and out, it's like another freeway. So you've got to be very, very careful of the long-term repercussions of whatever you do. I'm for progress, but planned progress. Planned progress, because you never know what the repercussions are going to do. So I just want to say, give thought to it. Protect the people in the neighborhood who back up to that green area. They love it too. And when it's gone, it's gone.
Thank you, Mrs. Banner. Anybody else like to speak? Come up, sir.
Good evening. My name is Brian Chun, and I live in 22 George Street. I'm the neighbor who is exactly in front of the wetlands, and I have a concerns because the neighbors, the rumors, I'd say, in the town is trying to sell the wetlands, and someone have planned like build a big parking lot or a condom there. And I concerned how that's gonna impact the neighbor. And I'm gonna bring up the Mr. Brain with the traffic. Right now is a big situation with the traffic. It doesn't look under control. And I'm worried because I have 2 kids. And the reason I moved to the town, to Trumbull town, is because it's a family orientation town. In a place that when I was looking for not just a house, a home, because I was thinking and have kids, right? Let's put it that way. And this was the safe. It made me feel safe. And I said, this is the town that I want to raise my kids in a safe environment, right? But now, lately, I've been seeing a lot of cars trying to avoid the traffic on that gas station, that light. They cut through Home and George Street, but they fly. I mean, and that's very dangerous, because I have kids, and they like to play outside. And that's just now. And then imagine having more business there, more cars. All these people is gonna go through Church Street, and that's gonna affect them. And I think it's something that you should think about. I'm worried about. You know, not only my kids. There's a lot of neighbors moving on, and they have kids too. May God doesn't want one day something happen, an incident. Because I'm letting you know, I live the street and I see this happen more often. All the people just to avoid that traffic light is cutting through my street with no precaution at all. They just want to get, I don't know, wherever they're heading. So I would like to have, like answers for that, what's really going to happen there, and to do something about the traffic too. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. John. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak to the sale of this property? Okay. Ma'am, come on back.
I meant to ask this before, Leah Pomanowski, 16 George. When was the actual sale of this, and how long did this go on? Because nobody knew anything about this sale until one of the gentlemen that works on the other side of a district in our area, the other side, came over and told everybody on George Street. Why was this such a secretive sale?
So,
Like, nobody knew anything.
so let me say this. The proposal to buy this property and for the town to sell it has been under consideration for several months. Only when there appears to be a potential meeting of the minds do we do what we are now doing and what we have done over the past week. And that is to post the sign on the property, do 2 newspaper notices, and hold this public hearing before we vote. The town has not sold any portion of the property. There's been an evolution of what to do with this property, whether to sell all of it or some of it. And we're being asked tonight to sell part of it.
Okay, but it just seems weird to me that nobody knew anything, and all of a sudden my neighbor sends a letter to the town of Trumbull, and all of a sudden now there's a sign up there and now we have a meeting. Just a little shady to me, that's all.
Okay, we're following state statute and giving notice, and I'm glad you came out tonight to speak. This was the whole purpose behind giving notice. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? Okay, hearing none, I will close the public hearing at 8:11. All right, so the council has this resolution on the floor. We're going to consider it. I want to say, before I entertain a motion to go into executive session, as the town attorney explained, the only thing that the council can do is decide to sell the property or not to sell it. What's on the agenda tonight is to sell just under a third of the property, which is immediately adjacent to the gas station property. Most of that land you've known over the years has been occupied, although the town owned it, but it's been occupied by the prior operator of the gas station. Just to give you an idea. So our authority is to decide to sell it or not to. We do not do traffic studies. We do not determine what they can do with the property. Our town attorney has negotiated some additional terms that the council is going to be advised of tonight, so that certain limitations would be consensually agreed upon, so that there can't be an overdevelopment of the property from some of the concerns that we've had. Mr. Marsh?
Just to add a little color and with concerns about traffic studies, the owner of the property who is going to potentially develop that project will have to submit, as part of its site plan and construction process, relevant studies, engineering studies, traffic studies, all of that thing. So that stuff will happen, but it's going to be by the owner of the property, the Lake and Main gas station property, not the town of Trumbull. I just want to be clear because just didn't want to make it sound like we're not cognizant and sympathetic to the traffic situation, but it will be addressed.
Attorney Shelpick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't usually respond in the public hearing session, but there are a couple of things. One is that has just been pointed out. And for people to understand, the person the proposed purchaser of this property already owns the Lake and Main piece. So that gas station, I believe, is going to be a gas station. As somebody said, they've been digging already, whether or not they get this piece. The total piece the town owns is 2.1 acres. What we're proposing to sell is a third of an acre. So it's a small part of the total parcel, and wetlands protection is going to be a very big part of what happens going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shelpick. Ms. Banner, I cannot have you come up at this point. The opportunity to speak has already been given. Does anybody else on the council have a comment at this point? Mr. Mecca?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I used to live on Sunrise Ave briefly, so it was nice to hear the history from the neighbors. And some of my former neighbors back then had been original, so I understand their perspective. So next steps for probably the existing neighbors to foresee or get an idea of what's going to be built. What should they look for? Like what other meetings outside council would provide a scheme of what's being proposed and all the other things that we probably know about, but maybe the public doesn't always understand all these other steps in the process.
Well, okay, let's have Economic Development Director Rena Bacalar speak to that, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rena Bacalar, Director of Economic and Community Development. We have been meeting with the project team about what they're proposing, and I think it's really important. Some of the neighbors brought up important things. I will speak to the owner about the hour, where's the gentleman, that they're coming there. I'll do that tomorrow. They should not be there before 7 a.m. Absolutely not.
The excuse was that the dump truck showed up at around 6.
Yeah, that's his problem, not ours. So we'll take care of that. That's not good. I have that happening next door to my house, and it's not fun. So I will take care of that in the morning, and I'll give you my card in case it happens again. Call me. They are really, from here, they're going to be going to wetlands. The wetlands team has been in some of the project meetings stressing many of the concerns about the wetlands. There will be great care and concern. And in some ways, it'll be a better situation because someone pointed out here that that area that they're looking to actually purchase is dirt right now, and it's been used, and it's had lots of cars and trucks and things and scrap metals and other things parked on it over the years. So we've had a lot of talk about wetlands, protecting that. We've had talk about tree buffers and things like that. So that's yet to come. And the way the wetlands works is, and George Estrada is here, his staff takes care of wetlands, but they will introduce their application at the first meeting, and then they won't hear it till the second meeting. So you're going to want to watch that. But I assure you that Tatiana is on top of this. She's our deputy town engineer. She has been very active and vocal in all of the team meetings we've had, so there'll be an opportunity. What they are proposing to the traffic thing, and I want everybody to understand, that traffic, that corner is an issue. It's traffic. They currently have 3 curb cuts. Does everybody drive-ins? There's one on Lake, right? And there's 2 right there, one almost to the corner, and then another one. So, of course, they have to propose this and the state has to agree, but we've all met and they want to reduce it to 2 curb cuts and move that Main Street curb cut down and widen it. It's on a bad angle, and the way cars come into that, it's a disaster. The current gas station in its configuration was operating as a terrible layout, and it didn't lend itself to good flow through that parking lot, so people were coming in and ducking and diving to get through there. So this will be a smoother layout, and there'll be, if DOT approves, an elimination of one of the curb cuts, which should help the traffic flow a bit. We can't stop the volume of cars are going to happen no matter what. I mean, that's just the traffic of the town, but it'll be a better functioning area if that's approved. And you know about that because you do this stuff, so hopefully DOT agrees. They're going to relay out the way the pumps are, so the circulation on the site will be better. They're going to demolish the existing building and rebuild a convenience store. The convenience store footprint will be bigger than the existing footprint, but it will be similar location. And someone mentioned the parking lot. The piece of the town property will all be parking lot paved. There is a proposal to put the air pumps that you pump your air with. And I think there may be an electric, we have to check this, electric charging station, whatever it's called. I don't know, pump. I was going to say pump. I'm out of it. But that may be in there. I just want to double check that because I don't know how that affects what you're doing. So there will be a traffic study. And this site actually, for folks that may know, and I'm going to assume Carol probably may know this, but it was a market at one point. It was a store before it was what it currently was an automotive kind of thing. So they're actually cleaning up the site because those tanks were at the end of their life and there was some leaching. So that's all being cleaned up. So there's a lot of positives. I think it'll end up being more positive to the wetlands and the cleanup, environmental cleanup of the area. And it'll be, I think, an improved site for the town. So that's it right now, if anybody has any questions. Yeah.
Ms. Malazzi, go ahead.
Do we happen to know if the convenience store is like a recognized brand? Is it going to be a Cumberland or something like that, or is it going to be an independent operation?
Right now, I don't have the name of the operator. I do not believe it's Cumberland Farms, and I do believe it's a convenience store with a little deli. So it's a deli convenience store, like a Scooters type thing. For folks that know Scooters. Okay, so, but I can get the name. So they're going to go from wetlands. If they get through wetlands, then they're going to do police commission, and then they will do planning and zoning. Okay.
Can I just ask, is the hair salon in that building, is that all part of it?
The hair salon's not changing. It's going to stay as it is. He is trying to match the roof architecture of the new building and that, because right now the two buildings aren't cohesive. They were never cohesive. So the roofing, I forgot what it's called. It goes, I don't know. Anyway, the type of roof it is, that roof will be matched on the architecture for the new building. So he is considerate about trying to tie the site together from an aesthetic view too.
Okay, Mr. Buswell, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Mazzaro. This is probably a Dan Chopik question. Dan, I don't know if you can answer this, but if we vote on this and if the owner is willing to deed restrict it, at some point down the road, would planning and zoning be able to override that in any capacity? Or once it's deed restricted and that's it?
That's something for future litigation. I can't, I don't know how the statutes are going to change. I don't know what they're going to try to do. I can tell you that there are agreements to deed restrict that we've negotiated since last week. I think we've had that discussion, but I don't know really what they could do with it, with what they're buying. But what the restrictions are something we have to go into executive session.
But there are no assurances, is my point.
Well, as a sure, it's. I'll never say never, because we can all think of situations where somebody's going to court and property's deed restricted, and they found a way around it. And I'm not going to tell you that it's never going to happen. I can tell you what we're going to do to try to protect the situation, to protect the property. We're not leaving them a lot of room to do anything that's intrusive, all right? But they're going to a lot of expense, as Rena has explained. Right now they're going to a lot of expense to put this plan forward in purchasing this property. They purchased the gas station piece from the Radcliffe family. That is done. All right, so just so everybody understands, all right, this is not they're putting up a gas station or a convenience store is not conditioned on getting the piece from the town. The piece from the town is a separate deal, and will require wetlands approval, will require zoning approval. If they don't get either of those, we're not selling to them. All right, so they have to go through the process, and if we could end up never selling to them if wetlands and planning and zoning don't approve the plan.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Gaudiano?
Thank you, through the chair. Rena, just a quick question because there was some comments about the parking lot. Multi-level, single-level, parking pad. Can you just give a little bit of flavor?
It's a one-level paved parking lot proposal. Okay. Yeah, thank you. I had that on my list to address. I also want to address that in order to make the site function better and to sort of move to widen and make the curb cut on Main Street that they're proposing to keep driving better, be more safer, have better flow. That's where the town, the portion of the town property helps too. So I think it'll be a better, functioning site in general. But there's a lot of considerations for the public, the neighbors, to really come to zoning and talk about the buffering and come to wetlands and talk about that. We're talking about all that in their team meetings, I assure you. But I think we even talked about, the mechanicals on the roof and making sure that they're not, overly visible or they're, stuff like that. We're cognizant of the neighbors. And I think that the more the neighbors just share those kinds of concerns, the better. But I do think for Trumbull, it is my feeling something has to happen there. It's been a functioning gas station, poorly laid out, and I think it's going to be an improvement. And it is change, so with that comes adjustment, So, but I think that we're reflecting all the comments, and like I said, I'm going to get on them tomorrow.
Just a quick question. It was stated earlier that the buyers are going to do a traffic study. Is that the same procedure that we
Mr. Baris, the traffic study is a subject for the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Police Commission. They have the burden of supporting their plan, and that will come in due course.
Yeah. The applicant always supplies, when they're proposing development on private property, they supply the traffic study. They have to meet a lot of requirements for their application for planning and zoning. And again, the police commission will probably require that as well. And then when they get approved, they have to go to the Office of the State Traffic Authority. I believe that's State Road there. So they're going to need OSTA approval from the state. So that's a whole nother process. And that process happens after they're approved at planning and zoning. They can apply for an OSTA during the planning and zoning process now, but it won't get approved until after their approval locally.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bacalar. The council's shortly going to go into executive session, which means only the and designated officials can be in that discussion. Which means if you're not one of those people, everybody will have to leave the room, and you can wait outside until the executive session is over and come back and hear how we further deliberate and perhaps vote. So I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session. Thank you, Ms. Gaudiano. Second. Thank you. We in executive session by unanimous consent? Yes. Ms. Satin?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, we'll pause for just a moment.
Just in terms of who's going to be
we're going to
present
have
executive session.
Town attorney, first selectman, for staff.
Town Attorney Nugent is here someplace. If he wants to be here, that would be fine.
Do we need Mrs. Bacalar?
Ms. Bacalar would, yes,
Okay.
I would like to have her there. And Ms. Katsky and Ms. What's her name? Kathy McGannon. We always forget, right?
Okay, let's recess for a second.
Thank you. Oops, excuse me.
that, like a jury duty.
All right, everyone, we're back in session. Thanks for being patient. On Resolution TC 30-94, we've had some clarifications, and I think from what we understand, the proposed parcel to be sold is entirely outside of the wetland. So the record should reflect that. Is there any question, discussion on the resolution? All right, then I will call for a vote. Can we adopt this by unanimous consent, or do we need a roll call? No objections. Ms. Satin?
No objection.
Thank you. Then the resolution TC 30-94 is adopted by unanimous consent. All right. Okay, so let's return to the top of the agenda, Resolution TC 30-85. Mr. Buswell, will you move this to the floor, please?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-85. Be it resolved that the Trumbull Town Council authorizes the submission of the funding application for the Local Prevention Council grant for the purpose of reducing vaping rates among 12 to 18-year-olds and identifies Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, as the individual authorized to sign the application and all subsequent amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Second.
Thank you. Committee report. Mr. Pifko, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. TPAUD Director Melissa McGarry explained that this funding application is from the State Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, Local Prevention Council grant funding. They have designated $5,662.90 for Trumbull for vaping prevention. TPAUD has been doing this work since 2017. TPAUD's work using these funds primarily is for education of their student population, their families, and the community. It purchases educational materials for the middle schools, high school health classes, and for the 9th grade forum, which is part of the curriculum. It will also fund educational efforts to promote vaping cessation programs for students, or kids rather, who may be using the supports of TPAUD's work in the schools to support the Juvenile Review Board and the school administrators. Vaping continues to be an issue. TPAUD surveys students every 2 years, grades 7 to 12. They have been able to track the decline in vaping rates since 2017. Overall, vaping rates do continue to decline. There's a struggle with a small population of students who have nicotine addiction. The schools are constantly dealing with kids who may be using in bathrooms or in other spaces, but overall, they do see a decline because of the educational efforts and the amount of awareness amongst families. TPAUD is doing prevention at much younger levels in the 6th grade and 7th grade levels. Their middle school rates have almost declined entirely, which is not the case for other communities. Prevention does work, and this grant funding is helpful. Vaping is the entry gate to smoking. Research shows young people who vape are more likely to smoke. Vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. We do have Melissa McGarry with us. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for considering this resolution to authorize the submission of the funding application for our local prevention grant. As Town Councilman Pifko mentioned, it's $5,662.90, which has been allocated for Trumbull, and we've been receiving this funding since 2017. So we're asking for you, the Town Council, to approve the submission of that funding application.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ms. McGarry? No? Go ahead, Ms. Gaudiano.
Through the chair, just thank you. I know you hung around for an hour for this resolution, and we
Happy to do
appreciate it.
All right, I'll call for a vote. Can we adopt Resolution TC 30-85 by unanimous consent? Yes. Ms. Satin?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you
right,
very
it
much.
is adopted. Thank you very much. Let's move to item 2, Resolution TC 30. Yeah, emergency
I
legislation.
believe we need a motion for emergency legislation.
Okay. Okay. All in favor? Anybody opposed?
Yes.
You're in favor of that motion, aren't you? Nicole?
I am.
Yeah. That's what I thought, but, you know, I snuck a sentence in there. All right. Emergency legislation is approved. We'll move to Resolution TC 30-86. Ms. Cologne, would you move this to the floor, please?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Resolution TC 30-86, be it resolved that Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, is hereby authorized as the individual authorized to sign the grant application to the Connecticut Secretary of the State and all subsequent contracts, amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the early voting program. Full resolution attached.
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Gene Rabideau, Register of Voters, explained this is another grant from the state to enable the town to absorb some of the additional costs from early voting. It is very similar to the grant application that was received from the first primary, before the first primary. They're asking for extra money because there are some hard costs in addition to overtime, such as more freestanding voting booths and other items for the 14 days for early voting. After the competitive bidding process was done, postcards have been designed and sent to the printer. Postcards give the location, the hours of operation for the polls for each voter, and every day of available early voting, its location in the library community room, and the extra hours that will be available on the final voting days. First Selectman Tesoro noted all this information is on the town website, on the spotlight of the home page, and the town's Facebook page. A robocall was done last week about Hillcrest School, and within that call, there was information about early voting as well. The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. We have Democrat Registrar Gene Rabineau. Good evening.
Good evening.
Is there something you'd like to proffer for this?
I profoundly hope that this will pass.
Can you give us a little comment or update on our preparedness for early voting?
Yes. We have essentially 3 staff, the 2 office assistant registrars and an additional person who will be covering the library. The problem with early voting this time is that we have no idea how many people are actually going to use it. If the turnout is very low, we anticipate that in future years we can move the process back to the office and deal with the influx of voters at the registrar's office, and we will not need a third person. But right now, we don't know what to assume. Turnout in the primaries was that about 1.5% of the total registered voters in the town took advantage of early voting, but not more than that. In the most recent primary, that was about 430-some voters over a 7-day period. If we have the same number of voters over a 14-day period, I'm not sure that we're going to need the library. It will take 2 people who have access to the Secretary's voter registration system to carry out the work of early voting, no matter how many people take advantage or where it's located.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? If not, I'll call for a vote. Can we adopt Resolution TC 30-86 by unanimous consent? Yes? Ms. Satin, thank you.
Thank
So
you.
adopted. Do we need emergency legislation?
Yes.
Yes. Is there a motion? Ms. Lenzen, second, Mr. Dorsey. All in favor? Anybody opposed? You did it again. Either, okay. All right, we're good. Let's move on to item 3, Resolution TC 30-87. Let's see. Mr. Wolf, will you move this to the floor, please?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. Resolution TC 30-87, be it resolved that the acceptance of funding in the amount of $842,400 from Connecticut DOT, LOT CIP for the Whitney Ave Sidewalk Phase 2, Trail Connection Improvements Project, and identifies Vicky A. Tesoro, First Selectman, as the individual authorized to sign the application, agreement, and all subsequent amendments, reports, and related documents in order to administer and implement the project. Full resolution attached.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, please.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Bill Moyer explained this resolution is for the trail connection from Dunellen to the Pequannock River Valley Trail at Whitney Avenue. This is the second phase. The first phase was from Long Hill Green down to Dunellen. This will be a difficult section. There's a retaining wall and very limited detour routes. This will probably have a longer project duration if they do a one-lane bypass. If they had completely closed the road, it could be shorter. Bill did say that that they did not have the beginning dates of the projects in this area, but they would try to get them for the council. It was confirmed there was no match required. This is a LOT CIP grant. The town pays for the design, and the state pays for the connection. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Ms. Baclar, do you have anything to say about this?
If anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to speak to it, but other than that.
Okay, I do have a question. This apparently is earmarked for the sidewalks, as stated. Is this grant application the traditional one that we ask for annually and generally apply to paving? Is this something
No,
different?
that's low SIP. This
Low
is
SIP.
lot SIP. So this is
Right.
has approval. We have to get approved for a grant. So it goes first to the MetroCog board, then up to DOT, and we just got our approval a few weeks ago.
Good. I forgot the lot SIP and the low
Yeah,
SIP.
two different.
It's good.
George would never allow us to use paving money for anything like this. He
I was
would
gonna say, you'd
flip
be in-
out. Maria would be flipping out too.
Yeah, you'd be in serious trouble. So would we.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Rena on this? All right, then, thank you.
Thank
I will call for a vote. All in favor of Resolution TC 30-87, please say yes. Raise your hands. Ms. Satin?
Yes. Yes, sir.
That makes it unanimous, thank you. We'll move to item 4, Resolution TC 30-88. Mr. Mecca, will you move that to the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Resolution TC 30-88, be it resolved that $195,171 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance to various accounts. Schedule attached.
Second.
Committee report, please. Mr. Dorsey?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. Maria Pires explained after the year-end transfers were done from within the department's budgets, these are the amounts left over that could not be covered. She reviewed the attached schedule line by line with the committee. Points of discussion are as follows. Funds for elections is coming from the state this year, 2025, not fiscal year 2024. The reason for the election supplemental is a couple of people on staff work 35 hours per week at certain times of the year, more than the regular 19.5 hours per week. The Munis system didn't recognize the additional hours, which is why this account was short. They work the additional hours every day during the election time. Purchasing does cover Board of Ed, but Board of Ed does not allocate out their budget yet. That has been talked about for several years. To be able to close out the fiscal year, emergency legislation was requested. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We have our Finance Director, Maria Pires, here. If there's any questions for her. Discussion? All right. Can we adopt this by unanimous consent? Yes. Any objections? Okay. It is adopted by unanimous consent.
I make a motion that we do emergency legislation.
Okay. Second? Second. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Right on cue. Good. Approved.
I'm getting really good at this.
All right, we will move to item 5, Resolution TC 30-89. Let's see. Ms. Dather, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Sure. Resolution TC 30-89, be it resolved that 123,523,000 is hereby transferred from contingency to various accounts. Schedule attached.
Second.
Again, Ms. Pyrus is here, if there's any questions for her. Any discussion? Committee report, I'm sorry.
Maria Pyrus explained these are to cover shortfall due to union contract settlements. These are all salaries. During the budget process, they budget in the contingency line item for any union contracts that have not been settled. Transfers of unspent funds from the department's budgets are done first, and if there's not enough, they transfer the difference from the contingency account. Maria Pyrus reviewed the attached schedule line by line with the committee. Points of discussion are as follows. The mate contract may have been out of contract for 2 years, and Mathis may have been 1 year. She will get the specific dates of the contracts for the full council meeting. The contract terms are usually 3 years. To close out the fiscal emergency, legislation was requested. Vote, motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. Again, Ms. Pyrus is here. For any questions, any discussion on this resolution? Mr. Shively?
Hi, Ms. Pyrus, if through the chair, if I may ask you a quick question. I believe at the committee meeting that you had indicated that that obviously we're not taking this out of the general, anything out of the general fund, so we had more than enough in the contingency fund to cover that. You mentioned that. Did you? I couldn't remember if you actually told us how much would be left or what we had in the contingency fund. I was just curious about that.
Initially, we had 306,000. We used 120, and we have 186,000 left that was not used because there was enough in the accounts to transfer from.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? Sorry, TC 30-89. Please raise your hands. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Ms. Satin, do you approve?
I do.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion to make this emergency legislation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Anybody opposed? Ms. Satin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Doing great. All right, we will move on to Resolution TC 30-90. Let's see. Mr. Lemoyne, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-90. Be it resolved that $39,266 is hereby appropriated from the fund balance to 01030000-578802 Maintenance and Rep Equipment Building.
Second.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Dorsey.
Maria Pyrus explained this represents replacement and or repairs of various town facilities, buildings such as town hall restroom partitions, town hall attic access ladder replacement, EMS exhaust controls replacement, various other repairs at other town buildings. See attached 2024 building maintenance year-end expense breakdown for further details. The budget was $216,550. The actual spent year to date was $282,370, and out of that, $90,000 was for emergencies, which resulted in an overage of $72,000. They were able to absorb some of the deficit and need the $39,266 to cover the shortfall. To date, all the invoices have been paid. This is to close out the fiscal year. Emergency legislation was requested. Vote motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Do we have any questions or discussion on this resolution? If not, can we adopt it by unanimous consent? Yes? Ms. Satin?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I make a motion for emergency legislation.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Can we adopt that motion by unanimous consent? Ms. Satin?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, item, let's see, 7, Resolution TC 30-84 was held in committee. So we'll move to item 8, Resolution TC 30-91. Mr. Shively, would you move this one to the floor, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Resolution TC 30-91, be it resolved that the funding for the tentative agreement between the Town of Trumbull and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 30, Trumbull, Non-Supervisory Highway and Parks Employees Union, beginning July 1st, 2022 to June 30th, 2025, is hereby approved.
Second.
Committee report, please, Mr. Pifko.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The LEA Committee entered executive session at 8:07 by unanimous vote, and it ended executive session at 8:30 by unanimous vote. Motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. We have Mr. McCarthy with us. So first question, this is a labor agreement, which if we wanted to discuss detail, would require executive session. Do we need to do that, or are we satisfied, I think? If you want you don't want executive session? No. Okay. Well, I didn't hear a motion, so Mr. McCarthy, anything you want to add before we vote?
Just one comment. I was asked how many employees, and I gave the wrong number. It's 48. There are 48 members of this union. That's it.
Have they voted yet, the rank and file?
They've ratified.
They have ratified. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, hearing none, can we adopt Resolution TC 30-91 by unanimous consent? Yes, Ms. Satin?
Yes.
Yes, sir? Oh, excuse me. You set me up perfectly for that.
That was a trick one. I'm a tricky one.
All right, Mr. McCarthy, do we need emergency legislation for this?
No.
We do not. All right. It is adopted. We'll move on to the final item tonight, Resolution TC 30-92. Let's see. Ms. Lenzen, would you bring this to the floor, please?
Certainly. Resolution TC 30-92, be it resolved that the town attorney is hereby authorized to settle a certain tax appeal matter known as Trumbull Shopping Center Number 2 LLC versus the Town of Trumbull, docket number HHB-CV 22-607-3382S.
Thank you. Committee report, Mr. Pifko.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman. The committee voted to go into executive session at 8:35 for the purpose of discussing pending litigation. The motion was carried unanimously. The committee came out of executive session at 8:49. The motion was carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Pifko. Attorney Jim Nugent is here.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
Good evening.
I'm here in favor of the resolution. I don't know if you want to go into executive session for the settlement discussion or not.
You want to discuss it?
Our caucus is fine too.
Okay. All right, then. Anything you want to add?
It's an excellent settlement for the town, and I strongly recommend it.
Excuse me, do you need emergency legislation for
I do
this?
need, yes.
You do? Okay. All right, we'll do one thing at a time then. Any other discussion, questions? I did have a question, if I can ask it. Is this settlement for one tax year or multiple?
Oh, well, this is for the 4 years from our delayed reval, so 21 through 24,
Okay, so we're all set there then,
until the next one, correct?
till the next one.
Right.
Okay.
The next reval, that is, yes.
Next reval, yes. Okay. Anything else? If not, can we adopt resolution TC 30-92 by unanimous consent? Yes. Ms. Satin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Would you like to make a motion for emergency legislation? Ms. Satin?
I would.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? I don't think so. I think we should just vote. Can we approve the emergency legislation by unanimous consent?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay? All right. What's the hurry? It's only 9:30. All right, thank you very much. A lot of good work this month. Thank you.